Hello, this is old Mr. Kent of MrKent.com, and I'm taking my e-bike for a little less than 3 mile ride to where I can launch my DJI Mini 2 and take a look at an area where Highway 12 is probably going to get squeezed in and cross the canal and go on down to the south. I've made this same ride and same flight back in probably January or February when my son and I were contending about which side of the canal the new freeway would be on. So here's the route that I'm taking. I'm starting at the top up there and coming down and all the way. You'll notice I keep getting closer and closer to the canal. That's the Central Arizona Project Aqueduct. So here we are coming to the place where I'm going to take off the drone. And then we'll start looking at some of the things that I'm looking at just for the fun of my own, of satisfying my interest. Now, that road right there where the cars are driving, that's Skyline. And as we come around here, this is the same view that I looked at last January when my son and I had a friendly contention. He said the freeway was going to come down on what would be the west side, which is the left, and I said on the other side, which is out in the desert. And to come down the left side of the canal would have had to gone through all those houses and over the top of them or something. So, but on this ride, we're going to take a look at another community where the highway is going to come within a mile or so of their houses. Now, if you look on this chart, on this map here, you'll notice that the freeway is crossing the canal at about that same place where the railroad is. And there's a kind of a jog just above that. It goes straight north and then jogs up as you go up to the right. And at the same place, there's a jog in the canal over at the same place. And so the canal is about, well, let's see, let's take a look at the Google Earth. And this is a closer look. Down at the bottom, you can see where the highway is going to cross the canal. And as it makes its jog, that's where it goes on straight further north. And here's the community that I was referring to, which we're flying out to right now. And we'll take a look and see. It's going to be kind of a narrow passageway. They'll have the freeway probably within a mile or about a mile from where they live. That community is about 2 miles from where I took off the drone. So this area right here that I'm flying over, that is probably going to be somewhere in there. That's where the freeway is going to come barreling through. So those folks aren't quite as blessed as we feel, since it's going to probably, if you look at my last video, I'll put a link to it, it's probably going to be over 2 miles from where we live, maybe even further. So that's why I made this flight. I wanted to see where it was going to come in, how close it was going to come into that little community, because I knew it was there from looking at Google Earth previously. So that's the plan. This will be a good place for me to take off from to watch the construction, but it's not going to happen for a long time. Now, one of the things I want to do in upcoming videos, I've told you all the stories about me, so I'm going to start telling you about my dad. My dad was a super, super nice guy. His favorite comment that he always told me was always be considerate of the other person, and that's just the kind of a guy he was all the way through his life. So I'm going to be telling you stories about him, and then on his 80th birthday, we had a big celebration, and I wrote a song in honor of him, which I'll put a recording of it at the end of this video. So you'll be forewarned. Anyway, I start out with when he was in high school, he worked for a a Woolworth store. I don't think they have them anymore. And had a paper route. Now, Woolworth was kind of, not exactly, but kind of like our Walmart today, except they didn't sell groceries. But they sold, a lot of other things, clothing and doodads and stuff like that. So he worked there, and his intention was to get enough money saved to go to radio school. Now, this was back in the 20s and 30s. At that time, radio was as new and exciting as when I was in my 30s and they came out with personal computers, and that was new and exciting to me, and I really got into it. Well, so he was interested in getting into radio, and which he eventually did, but as he was in high school saving his money, his dad decided to take his money and buy himself a car. His dad bought a new car with the money he was saving to go to school. So that's the thing I remember most about my dad way back long before I was ever around. So then, by the way, this is looking over there towards where the freeway probably will head after it crosses over the canal, somewhere in that direction out there. So it's going between Phoenix and Tucson. That's the route that it's taking. So anyway, I'll tell you one story. If I have time, I'm sure, to tell you a story about another thing. This was probably when I was an infant, and my dad was a genius. He didn't have a welder or anything, couldn't weld, but he built himself an electric scooter out of wood, and he rode it around there in Cheyenne. He was born in Fort Collins, Colorado, and moved to Cheyenne, and he worked in Cheyenne, and of course that's where he started his family. And so he made this little electric scooter, and it was designed just like golf carts are, or were anyway, before they came up with any powerful electronic speed controls. And so to control the speed, you had coils of resistance wire, and I've worked on those old golf carts, and there were several coils. As you pushed the pedal down to increase speed, the current would go through fewer and fewer resistance coils, and that would send more current to the motor. So he did the same thing, building his electric scooter. And so the story goes, I wasn't there, but there's looking up the canal, and that's looking, that green field on the left, that's the circular irrigation field that I fly over a lot. So anyway, so he was taking my older sister out for a ride. And this is what I remember. I could be wrong, but anyway, he was riding it. And of course, those coils that he put in, when they have current going through them, they get pretty hot. And as it turned out, he was riding along, and all of a sudden, he had to stop because the wood was catching on fire right around where the coils were. And like I said, I wasn't there, but it burned up his electric scooter that he had designed and built. And so that's kind of a sad story, but that's what happened to him. I've got lots of other stories about the genius that my dad was. And so as I come in here and land, I'll go ahead and sing you the story, or sing you the song that I wrote for him on his 80th anniversary. That song was the big celebration that he had reached 80 years old. And I stood in front of him and I sang it, and that was the very first time in my life I had ever seen tears in my dad's eyes. So let's listen to the song, and hope you enjoy it.
Who could fix what I broke and give me reason to hope? My dad. Who could happen along and make a right out of wrong? My dad. Who'd we learn to run to when the toy we got new didn't do all the things that we wanted it to? There was no other person we knew but my dad. Who would I rather have help me work on my math? My dad. When I learned how to drive, who'd I have at my side? My dad. And just about everything, from riding a bike to the issues of life that I like and don't like, well, I guess I got it all from my dad. And I sure am awful thankful for my dad. He's among the dearest friends I've ever had. And there hardly comes a day the Lord won't hear me say, well, I sure am awful thankful for my dad, who gave honest advice, who would never speak twice. My dad, who could teach all he did to a bunch of us kids. My dad. And when we all moved away, started life on our own, in our hearts we were all taking Daddy along, for we couldn't have done it without my dad. As the years have passed, who gave me memories that last? My dad. And I honor him so, there's so much that I owe my dad. And there's little that I can do or say to show how much I love him today, but I feel it all when I say my dad. And I sure am awful thankful for my dad. He's among the dearest friends I've ever had. And there hardly comes a day the Lord won't hear me say, well, I sure am awful thankful. Yes, you know I'm awful grateful. I sure am awful thankful for my dad.
All right, well, I hope you enjoyed it. I want to thank you for watching my videos, and God bless.